Bank teller throws black woman CEO's stack of bills on the floor. By morning, $2 billion partnership is gone. You did what? I told her I wasn't comfortable counting that much cash. She kept pushing, so I dropped it. It's not my job to make her feel like royalty. The teller's voice was louder than it should have been. Her cheeks were flushed, breathing shallow, eyes darting at the growing line behind her. The stack hit the floor with a slap. Silence. Then the sound of bills fluttering, brushing against her leather heels, the chill of the marble floor seeping up through her soles. Naomi Wells didn't move. Neither did the man in the charcoal suit behind her, watching. His cufflinks caught the light like little knives. A phone chimed somewhere. The manager's heels clicked toward them, face already tight with the apology she hadn't voiced yet. I'm going to need a statement, Naomi said. Her voice was quiet but full, a voice that carried boardrooms, courtrooms, glass ceiling rooms. The teller scoffed. You can't just walk in with $50,000 in cash and expect. It was $49,720, unmarked, with receipts, for a partner bank deposit, pre-approved. The teller blinked. She didn't know. She didn't care. Naomi's phone buzzed in her bag. Once, then again, then 3 times in a row. She reached for it with one hand and reached for her bills with the other. Then her eyes froze on the screen. Subject line, withdrawal of intent to partner, immediate. The email was time-stamped 7 minutes ago, sent from Zurich. She looked up at the man in the charcoal suit behind her. Did you know? His expression didn't change. He adjusted his tie. She asked again, did you know this was going to happen? And then he smiled. 10 weeks earlier, the sky over Atlanta was a low gray, like it was thinking hard about whether to rain. Naomi Wells sat in her corner office at the top of a glass and steel building, alone but not lonely, working through the last page of a pitch deck she hadn't stopped rewriting in 3 days. Her office was clean, too clean, like it hadn't been lived in. That was the point. The wall behind her desk was a matte black, lined with framed patent certificates and a single photo of her mother, 1997, holding up a diploma with both hands, eyes full of fire. Naomi had the same fire. People said so. They said she was fierce, poised, tireless, the kind of woman who didn't blink in front of billionaires. But today, her hands trembled slightly. Tomorrow was the Zurich pitch. She stood, pushed away from the desk, and crossed to the window. Below, traffic pulsed in slow motion. The kind of crawl that made you late if you weren't ahead. Her assistant, Deja, knocked lightly on the glass and pushed the door open with her hip. You've got the car for the airport at 6, she said. Do you want me to call ahead about the gift basket? And also, your mom left you another voicemail. Naomi didn't turn around. She's going to ask about the church fundraiser again, Deja added. Said it's this Sunday. Tell her I'll be out of the country. She knows. That's why she called. Naomi closed her eyes. She loved her mother. Loved her with the kind of ache that started when you were too young to understand why someone always had to work 3 jobs. But now wasn't the time. Not when everything she'd fought for was about to be laid bare in front of European board members and banking analysts who still said diversity like it was a trend. I'll call her from the hotel, Naomi said. Deja nodded and left without pressing further. Naomi turned back to her desk. The last slide on her deck stared up at her. Projected net revenue after year 2, $1.7 billion. She changed the font. Again. Then she changed it back. The Zurich trip went off without a hitch. She nailed it. They smiled in that restrained Swiss way, murmured to each other in a mix of English and German, and 2 days later, the email arrived. Letter of intent to partner, ZRH Capital AG. Naomi sat down hard when she read it. $2 billion in funding, phased over 4 years, contingent on U.S. operations maintaining financial transparency and domestic compliance. She stared at the line that mattered most. We believe Wells Tech is positioned to define the future of AI-integrated public infrastructure. After years of being told she was ahead of her time, here was someone with real money, telling her that her time had come. She didn't cry. Not yet. She went straight to work. There were new hires to confirm, legal to coordinate, and the Q3 cash compliance review to finalize, which meant walking into one of her partner banks with a deposit, not a wire, not a transfer. Cash. It was old school, but required. Some partner banks still needed physical confirmation for pre-audit filing. She called ahead. She scheduled the drop. She brought her assistant, the receipts, The bag. She didn't bring a bodyguard. She didn't think she needed to. What she didn't know was that the teller scheduled for her appointment had traded shifts that morning. What she didn't know was that this new teller hadn't read the memo, didn't recognize her face, didn't know she was speaking to a woman who had just secured the biggest minority-led tech partnership in the Southeast. And what no one knew, not even Naomi, was that behind her in line stood a man in a charcoal suit. A man who had everything to lose if she succeeded. Naomi sat in the car afterward, silence wrapped tight around her shoulders. She hadn't spoken since the bills hit the floor. She hadn't spoken when the manager came, apologized, and offered to count the money herself. She hadn't spoken when the email from Zurich came in, retracting their offer without elaboration. Only when Deja finally whispered, "What happened in there?" did Naomi answer. She turned, voice hoarse but steady. "Someone wanted us humiliated." Then her phone buzzed again. No message. No caller ID. Just a photo. It was grainy, cropped, but unmistakable. Her at the bank. The bills on the floor. And standing behind her, the man in the charcoal suit. Looking right at the camera. Smiling. Her pulse spiked. Her lips parted, but no words came. Because now, finally, she understood. This wasn't about protocol. This wasn't about one bad teller. This was war. And she had just stepped onto the battlefield. Naomi barely slept. She sat on the edge of the hotel bed with the photo still open on her phone. The man in the charcoal suit looked so at ease. Like he belonged there. Like he knew something she didn't. The smile on his face wasn't cocky. It was clean, professional, intentional. She'd seen that smile before. On board members. On venture capitalists who told her she was exceptional right before denying her a check. On men who called her Naomi while addressing her white male co-founder as Mr. Sullivan. Only she didn't have a co-founder anymore. 3 years ago, she bought him out. Wells Tech was hers now. So was this mess. She dialed Deja. "Pull every bank partnership contact," she said. "I want to know who could have leaked anything. Emails, texts, calendar invites, especially the bank appointment. Lock them down. Print them if you have to." Deja's voice came through groggy and thick. "Naomi, it's 4 in the morning. I know. I need you in the office by 6. Did something happen?" "Yes. And I'll explain everything. But I need you in. And call security." "For the office?" "No," Naomi said. "For me." She hung up. By 6:13 a.m., she was back in the building, standing in her office with her coat still on. The lights were too bright. She hadn't eaten. Her temples pulsed like tiny fists were knocking on the inside of her skull. Deja came in holding a stack of printed reports, a coffee, and an unopened envelope marked confidential, hand-delivered. Naomi reached for the coffee first, then hesitated. "Who gave you that?" Deja held the envelope. "Security says it was dropped off by courier. No return address. Just your name." Naomi took it. The paper was heavy, high stock, expensive. She tore it clean. Inside, one sheet. No logo. No signature. Just a typed message, centered in a plain serif font. "Careful who you embarrass in public, Naomi. Next time, it won't be your money on the floor." She read it again. Then a third time. The words didn't change, but the cold in her chest did. "Get IT," she said. "Pull every camera in that bank. Especially the lobby. I want eyes on that man." "You think this was coordinated?" Deja asked. Naomi didn't answer. She was already pulling up her contacts, searching for a name that only one other person had said out loud in the past 5 years. A name she hoped she'd never need again. She found it. Andre Salvo. VP, Adron Strategic Ventures. She hadn't seen him since he'd cornered her at a gala in D.C., grinning over a bourbon and asking if she was still playing with algorithms. She'd smiled back and turned away. She hit the call button. He picked up on the second ring. "Well, damn," he said. "Didn't expect to see your name on my screen before breakfast. Naomi Wells. Or should I say Naomi Wins." "I need to meet," she said. He paused, just long enough to let her know he was intrigued. "I assume this isn't social. It's about Zurich. And about a man in a charcoal suit." "Sounds serious." "It is." He was quiet for a beat. Then, "I'm in Atlanta for 2 more days. You know the office. Come through at 10. She hung up. Naomi had always hated the Adron building. It was too slick, too curated, like a luxury dealership pretending to be a VC firm. She walked in at 9:58 and was buzzed straight up. Andre's office had glass walls and no desk. Just 2 chairs, a couch, and a man with too much charm and too much memory of her early mistakes. "You look good," he said, offering his hand. She didn't take it. "Tell me what you know." He raised an eyebrow. "No good morning? No patience." Andre smirked and nodded toward the couch. "You always were surgical." She sat but didn't relax. Andre poured water from a carafe into 2 glasses. Set one in front of her. "I heard what happened." Words moving fast. "From who?" He gave a non-answer shrug. "Someone," he said, "who doesn't like you very much. And unfortunately for you, he's not alone." Naomi leaned forward. "Who is he?" "Someone with old money, old scars, and a long list of people he thinks don't belong in his world. Especially not women who make him look small." Andre stood and walked to the corner window. "He was at Zurich," he said. "Not officially. He wasn't on the pitch list. But he's tied to at least one of their domestic board advisors. And when your name came up, he paid attention." Naomi stood too. Her hands were clenched. "I want his name." Andre turned. "Why? So you can fire off a press release?" "Sue, please. You know how this game works." "He didn't threaten you." "Not directly. He didn't stop the deal." Zurich withdrew. "All very clean. Very legal." "I don't want legal," Naomi said. "I know," he replied. "You want blood." She didn't respond. Andre moved closer. "Listen to me. You're not out of the game. This is a move. Just a move. They're testing how loud you'll be. If you fold, it's over. If you fight smart, they'll come back. You just have to." "I don't need strategy," Naomi said. "I need facts. Give me his name." Andre studied her. Then, slowly, he nodded. Reynard Boone. The name was unfamiliar, but the weight behind it wasn't. Old oil money. Political ties. Board seats at 3 investment banks. And now, apparently, a personal vendetta. Andre handed her a folder. "Careful," he said. "Boone doesn't pick fights he can't win." Naomi took the folder and turned to leave. She stopped at the door. "I don't care what he wins," she said. "As long as he knows I'm not the one who gets knocked down." She walked out, but she didn't go back to the office. She went to her car, opened the folder, and stared at the first page. A dossier. Photos. Timelines. Names. And there, toward the bottom, was a familiar face. The man in the charcoal suit. And beneath it, a name she never expected to see. Malcolm Wells. Her brother. Who died in 2017. Or so she thought. She stared at the name like it was a hallucination. Malcolm Wells. Aliases: Marcus Vell, M. Ward, Malcolm Black. Affiliations: unknown. Confirmed sighting: Bank of Georgia Midtown branch, 3 days prior. Status: active. The words didn't make sense. Her brother had died. A car accident. The coroner confirmed it. There was a funeral. She gave the eulogy. Her voice had cracked when she said, "He always protected me, even when I didn't ask for it." So how the hell was he in that photo? She flipped the page. A low-res image, likely pulled from a still camera, no timestamp, no audio. But unmistakable. Same jaw. Same cheekbones. Same sharp, watchful eyes. Her knees buckled. She slammed the car door shut and locked it, suddenly aware of how exposed she was. For a long time, she just sat there, breathing like she'd been underwater. What if it wasn't him? What if it was some lookalike? A glitch in her memory? That was easier to believe. But her gut didn't lie. Not about this. Not about him. And now the man she thought was buried was tied to the man who had just gutted her company's biggest win. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. She typed one name: Mom. Paused. Then hit call. It rang. Once. Twice. Then her mother answered, voice sleepy and suspicious. "Naomi? It's not even 8 o'clock. I need to ask you something," she said. "And I need you to tell me the truth." Her mother's tone shifted. "What's wrong? What happened?" "Malcolm," Naomi said. "Is he dead?" Silence. Then her mother said, "Why would you ask that?" And just like that, Naomi knew. She knew before the explanation, before the hesitation, before the breathing on the other end turned heavy and full of things unsaid. "You lied to me," Naomi said. Her voice dropped low, nearly shaking. "All these years, you let me think he was. Why?" "I was trying to protect you." "From what?" "From him." Naomi's heart thudded once, painfully, in her chest. She looked again at the photo in the folder. His expression, his posture. He hadn't just been watching. He had been measuring her. "What did he do, Mama?" Her mother took a breath, like she was lifting something heavy. "Malcolm didn't die in that crash," she said. "He disappeared. And when he showed up again, he wasn't the same. Something happened to him. Something bad. Where did he go? I don't know. He never told me. But when he came back, he wasn't Malcolm anymore. He asked questions about your business, about your funding, about your plans. He said he wanted to help you fix your blind spots. And when I asked him what that meant, he said you were too soft. Naomi's stomach twisted. How long ago was this? For years. You knew, Naomi whispered. You knew he was out there. And you didn't tell me. I was scared. You don't know what he's capable of. Naomi hung up. Not out of rage. Out of clarity. She opened the folder again. The final page was a map. 3 red dots. Atlanta, Zurich, and 1 in D.C. She stared at the D.C. address. An old apartment in the Northeast Corridor. A place Malcolm had stayed for exactly 2 weeks the summer before their father left. Naomi pulled up her GPS and entered the address. Then she put the car in gear and drove. The building was smaller than she remembered. It smelled like old wood and carpet glue. She stood outside apartment 3B, hand hovering near the door. She knocked twice. Nothing. She waited. Then the lock clicked, and the door opened 2 inches. No chain. No voice. Just an eye. Then a low, quiet rasp. I wondered how long it would take. Naomi's breath caught. Malcolm. The door opened wider. And there he was. A little older. A little leaner. But still him. Except not. The Malcolm she remembered was all joy and chaos and Big Brother energy. This man was precise. Controlled. There was a weight in his eyes that didn't come from grief. It came from knowing things he shouldn't. You left me, she said. You let me grieve you. I did it to keep you clean. Clean. Naomi stepped forward. You just cost me a $2 billion partnership. That partnership was poisoned, he said. You think Zurich wasn't being watched? You think Boone made that move on his own? You're on a list now, Naomi. People don't like when black women sit at billion-dollar tables and don't flinch. She stared at him, stunned. What the hell are you involved in? He looked past her, down the hall, then back into her eyes. You want the truth? He said. You can't go back to your office. Not yet. Because by now, someone's already cleared your files. Naomi stepped back. You're lying. I'm not, he said. And the man who did it? You shook his hand 3 weeks ago at a funding summit. White suit. Light accent. Called you refreshing. Her stomach turned. She remembered him. I can help you, Malcolm said. But you need to decide right now. Do you want the version of your company they let you have? Or do you want the one they're afraid of? Naomi stared at her brother. The brother she thought was gone. The brother who let her bury an empty casket. The brother who just pulled her into something far deeper than one bank and one failed deal. And even though her whole body told her to run, she said, what do I have to do? Malcolm smiled, but it wasn't warm. Burn the whole thing down. The silence between them was thick. Naomi stood just inside the apartment, unsure whether she was walking into a conspiracy or coming home to a truth she had ignored for years. Malcolm watched her carefully, like he was waiting for her to blink the wrong way. She hadn't realized how tall he looked now, how angular his face had become, like the world had carved into him. You want to take down Boone? He said. You don't do it in the open. You don't go to the press. You don't cry on someone's podcast about being humiliated. You get quiet. You get surgical. And you pull the wires out from under him. You're talking like this is war. It is. You just didn't see the bullets until one hit you. Naomi paced. Her brain felt too full of anger, grief, the betrayal still fresh from that teller's scowl. She'd built Wells Tech from nothing. Every pitch, every sleepless night, every silent no turned into a strategic pivot. She had done that. And in one public slap of disrespect, it all unraveled. You could have told me you were alive, she said. You should have told me. Malcolm sat on the edge of a wooden table cluttered with documents. If I did, they would have followed me straight to you. Who the hell is they? You'll see. Naomi rubbed her hands over her face. You sound like a damn movie script. He didn't smile. You think what happened in that bank was coincidence? No, I know it wasn't. You were made to look weak. Unstable. That email from Zurich? You think they care about a teller? No, they got footage before you did. Footage that made it look like you walked in hot, threw money around, caused a scene. They pulled the deal because they were told to pull the deal. This isn't business. It's leverage. She swallowed the tightness rising in her throat. And you're telling me you can fix that? No, Malcolm said. I'm telling you we can flip it. He handed her a folder, different from the one Andre gave her. This one was handwritten. Names. Wireframe charts. Locations. Most of it indecipherable. Naomi flipped through and stopped at one name. Darla Pike, exec liaison, Boone Equity Holdings. I know her, she muttered. She was at the Zurich cocktail hour. She complimented my shoes. She's also the one who forwarded the security footage to Zurich's board under the title, Behavioral Risk Assessment, Wells Tech CEO. Naomi's hand clenched the paper. And the teller? Her file's being scrubbed. She'll disappear in 2 weeks. New job. New name. So they erased their pawns. They always do. Naomi looked up. What do you want from me? Malcolm leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I want you to walk into that office tomorrow like nothing happened. I want you to reassert control over Wells Tech. You'll get pushback. Someone on your senior team's already turned. Naomi narrowed her eyes. Who? Not yet. I want to be sure. But if we're going to do this, you need to stop trusting everyone just because they say the right things in a meeting. I don't. You do, he cut in. You always gave people the benefit of the doubt. It made you a better human and a vulnerable CEO. Naomi looked away. Here's what happens next, he said. We stage a leak. Something small. Just enough to stir the pot inside Boone's team. I've got a contact who'll feed it to a trusted journalist under a dummy source. Meanwhile, you act normal. Keep the company breathing. Wait for them to respond. And when they do, that's when we hit them where it hurts. Naomi stood, folder still in hand. I can't believe I'm even listening to this. You are, he said, because you know I'm right. She walked to the door, her hand on the knob. When we were kids, she said without turning, you told me I could trust you with anything. Even the stuff that scared me. I meant it, he said. You also said you'd never lie to me. A beat. I broke that promise, Malcolm admitted. But I never stopped protecting you. Naomi opened the door. I don't need protection anymore, she said. I need the truth. She left without waiting for his answer. She didn't go home. She drove, circling the Beltline, past the offices, past the neighborhoods that looked different now than they had when she and Malcolm were kids. Everything shinier, more curated, and somehow less real. Her phone buzzed. A message from Deja. You need to come in. There's been a breach. She hit the gas. Wells Tech's main entrance was swarming with quiet chaos. Employees clustering in hallways. Whispered conversations. Screens frozen mid-login. She walked straight to her office. Deja was already there, pacing. What happened? I don't know how they got in, Deja said. But your entire drive, gone. Encrypted. The cloud backups? Scrambled. The only thing left untouched was the Zurich deck you printed before your flight. Naomi looked at her desk. It was exactly as she'd left it. Too perfect. Deja's voice dropped. Whoever did this had access. Real access. IT team. Running diagnostics, but, Deja hesitated. One of them, Luis, he didn't show up today. No call. Just gone. Naomi stared at the blank monitor on her desk. They want us scattered, she said. Afraid. Deja folded her arms. Are we? Naomi looked at her. No, not today. She opened her bag and pulled out Malcolm's second folder. Inside was something she hadn't noticed before. A simple printed list, clipped to the back. Names. Dates. 3 of them circled in red. And beneath it, in Malcolm's handwriting. Pick one. Offer a meeting. Watch who shows up uninvited. That's your mole. Naomi smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Tell the staff we're calling an all-hands for tomorrow. Tell them it's routine. What's it about? Naomi looked down at the folder again. Then back up, voice sharp and clear. Cleaning house. The meeting was set for 10 a.m. sharp, but Naomi arrived at 8. She stood at the tall windows of the 22nd floor conference room, staring out at a city that didn't care who got broken in the race to the top. A faint reflection of herself stared back. Calm, composed, unreadable. Just how she needed to look. Behind her, Deja arranged files on the long glass table with the quiet urgency of someone who knew the air was about to change. You sure about this? Deja asked. You've got 3 fake meetings on the calendar and no actual agenda. There is an agenda, Naomi said, turning. It just hasn't been shared yet. Deja raised an eyebrow. And you're really going to bait your own team? I'm not baiting anyone. I'm watching. Malcolm thinks we've got a leak, someone close. This is the only way to smoke them out. You trust him? Naomi looked down. No, but I believe him. Deja sighed. That's a hell of a difference. The conference room filled slowly. Directors, legal, product heads, finance. People Naomi had hired, mentored, defended in board meetings. People who, on another day, might have made her proud. She scanned their faces one by one as they entered, nodded their greetings, settled into seats. The last to arrive was Charles Min, her VP of Strategic Growth. He always came in late. Not disrespectfully, just enough to remind everyone he moved on his own clock. Naomi kept her eyes on him as he took a seat. He didn't look at her. She checked her phone. There it was. Ping. A notification from Malcolm. Boone's watching. One of your meetings just got forwarded to someone outside the building. Logged through a shadow email. Timestamp. 9:27 a.m. Naomi's eyes flicked to the attendee log. Only one of the 3 dummy meetings was at 10 o'clock. Advanced Infrastructure Pilot, confidential. She looked at Deja, whose own phone lit up with the same message. Deja's eyebrows rose. Naomi gave the faintest nod. Let's begin, she said. She walked to the front of the room and dimmed the lights slightly. Not too much. Just enough to make everyone a little more aware of their own movements. We're going to do something different today, Naomi began. No slides. No deck. I want to talk about risk. Ours. A few heads turned. Charles scribbled something in a notebook. I want to talk about what it means to build in a world that doesn't want us to win. That doesn't even want us at the table. Silence. I've spent the past year navigating deals that looked good on paper, but came loaded with landmines. Some of you were in the room for those. You know the stakes. You've seen how fast the ground shifts. She walked slowly down the side of the room. We lost Zurich because of optics. But not our optics, theirs. And someone in this building, gave them the ammunition. Now they were sitting up. She stopped at the end of the table. I don't need loyalty, she said. I need truth. She let the silence stretch. Then she picked up a small remote and clicked the screen behind her on. 3 company names appeared. Altivan Logistics, Boone Equity Holdings, Ascent Global Strategies. Underneath each, a list of affiliations. Investments. Shell companies. Lobby firms. Gasps rippled through the room. These 3 groups coordinated our ousting from Zurich. And one of them has a direct line to this office. She turned back to them. No one leaves until I get answers. Murmurs rose. Defensive hands. Confused faces. But Naomi watched Charles. He didn't react. He just stared. Too still. Too practiced. Deja whispered, That's him. Naomi nodded once, then raised her voice. I want device logs, forwarded messages, off-server backups. Anyone who can't provide that today will be escorted out. Starting now. There was a beat of hesitation, then sudden motion. Some employees grabbed phones. Others panicked. Legal counsel stood and started taking names. Charles remained seated. When the room was nearly cleared, he finally stood. May I speak to you privately? Naomi gestured toward her office. Now. The door shut behind them with a quiet click. Charles didn't sit. You think I'm your leak? You are. He smiled faintly. You used to trust me. I used to believe people were what they said in meetings. He stepped forward, but Naomi didn't move. She wouldn't give him that. I didn't sell you out, he said. Not completely. I was pressured. Boone's team offered me a position, more money, more equity. They made it sound like Wells Tech was a stepping stone. Like you were going to fold eventually. Naomi's chest tightened, but her voice stayed level. And you believed them? I didn't want to. But after Zurich pulled out, I thought, maybe this isn't sustainable. Maybe you needed someone on the inside. You convinced yourself betrayal was strategy. I convinced myself it was survival. Naomi stared at him. Then survive somewhere else. He scoffed, but she didn't blink. You're fired, Charles. You don't have cause. I have security footage. And a digital trail. And an internal email you forwarded to a Boone asset from your personal Gmail. His face drained. You can leave quietly, she said. Or I can call the press. He turned. At the door, he paused. You'll be next, Naomi. They won't stop. She nodded. I'm counting on that. That night, Naomi returned to her apartment with every light on. She didn't feel safe in the dark anymore. She opened a new bottle of scotch and sat at her kitchen table, the city glowing coldly beyond the glass. She sent one text. We got him. Now what? Malcolm replied almost instantly. Now we start phase 2. We build a ghost company. We leak the ghost to Boone's people. Then we let them think they're buying you out. And while they celebrate, we take their network apart from the inside. Naomi stared at the screen, heart pounding. She typed back slowly. If we do this, I need to know everything. No more secrets. No more lies. You owe me that. A long pause. Then his response. Meet me tomorrow. One condition. I tell you what really happened the day I died. Naomi closed her eyes, phone clutched in one hand. Tomorrow, the war would turn. But first, she'd finally learn what her brother had buried in the past. Naomi arrived before sunrise. The place Malcolm chose for their meeting was a beat-up auto garage just south of I-285, the kind of place that didn't show up on GPS. The windows were fogged with dust, the air thick with oil and memory. She parked her car on the side and stepped out slowly, her breath fogging in the morning chill. He was already inside, leaning over a metal workbench, hands blackened from whatever he'd been working on. Something mechanical, half-assembled, like it helped him think. You came alone, he said without turning. You said one condition. I'm here. He finally looked up. His eyes were sharper than the last time, like whatever thread had been holding him together was about to snap. You sure you want to know? He asked. She crossed her arms. You don't get to ask that anymore. Malcolm wiped his hands on a rag and motioned to a pair of chairs near the wall. Naomi sat, back straight. He didn't. When I left, he started, I wasn't running. I was recruited. Naomi's stomach twisted. By who? A group called Arclight. Private, off-ledger. They operate like a think tank, but really they're a containment crew. They track talent and threats, especially tech-related. I got pulled in after I cracked the DC defense firewall back in 15. Naomi blinked. You told me that was a job interview trick. It was. The job just wasn't legal. He continued. They told me I could either vanish or be buried. Said I had potential. I was angry back then. Smart, reckless. And I wanted in. I told Mom I was leaving. She didn't stop me. She knew better. Naomi swallowed. But the accident? Staged. My ID was swapped. Dental records falsified. Everything. They needed me off the map. And you let me think you were dead. He flinched. I read your eulogy, he said. They made me watch. To prove I was willing to let go. You let go of me. I never did. I watched everything you built. I kept tabs. When you landed the NSF grant, I knew you were close to something big. Too big. Naomi narrowed her eyes. You were monitoring me. I was protecting you. No, she said sharply. You were spying. Malcolm didn't argue. He reached behind the bench and pulled out a hard drive. I copied Boone's files before I left Zurich, he said. There's a subnetwork. A cluster of dark capital investment groups. They funnel money through front companies, tech accelerators, clean energy, even crypto platforms. What do they want with me? Control. You're building infrastructure tech, Naomi. AI that optimizes cities, power grids, transit. If they get a piece of it, they don't need to control politicians. They control the algorithms behind the decisions. Naomi felt like the floor tilted. This isn't about money, she said. It's about power. Malcolm pulled up a schematic on a tablet, one of Naomi's own early models, the predictive traffic matrix she'd designed for Metro Atlanta. I traced it, he said. They've already integrated your model into a pilot program overseas. Without credit. Without consent. Stolen straight from your beta deployment last year. Naomi stared at the screen. Her work. Rewritten in someone else's name. What the hell do we do? Malcolm didn't hesitate. We hit them first. He handed her a black folder with a logo embossed on the front in silver ink. Domino. What's this? A decoy shell corp, he said. You're going to create a fake offshoot of Wells Tech. Just enough code. Just enough credibility. We'll see the idea that it's the real pivot, an AI-based logistics optimization tool. That'll draw Boone's people. They'll try to invest. Maybe even steal. Naomi nodded slowly. And while they're focused on that, we go after the real prize, the integration node. The what? The pipeline they're using to feed your tech into international infrastructure. You kill that, Boone's entire operation gets exposed. The shell companies fall like dominoes. Naomi finished, understanding dawning. Malcolm met her eyes. You in? She stood. I've already lost too much not to be. By the time Naomi returned to the Wells Tech office, she was on fire. Her team was waiting. Those who hadn't folded under pressure or bailed when the air got too tense. Deja was already in her office, arranging a fresh stack of folders and quietly briefing the few execs Naomi still trusted. The atmosphere felt different now. Less stunned, more alert. Like everyone had finally realized they weren't playing a game anymore. They were at war. We need two teams, Naomi told Deja. One visible, one silent. The visible team builds Domino. A clean, flashy, pitch-friendly product. The silent team will start combing through our old deployment logs. Look for leaks, code forks, anything that might have been cloned. Got it, Deja said. And the press? Nothing. Not yet. Let them keep thinking we're limping. Deja smirked. You really are your brother's sister. Naomi paused. No, I'm not. Then she picked up the hard drive Malcolm had given her and locked it in her safe. For now. That night, Naomi dreamed of water. She was on a bridge, her old neighborhood behind her, the skyline ahead. She could hear sirens somewhere, and Malcolm's voice calling her name. She looked down, and in the water, she saw her own reflection. But it wasn't her. It was someone else. Someone colder. Someone sharper. Someone who had nothing left to lose. When she woke up, the clock said 4:17 a.m. She turned on the lamp, sat up, and whispered to no one. Let's begin. The morning after the dream, Naomi was already at her desk before the sun cut the horizon. She didn't open her laptop right away. She sat in the quiet, watching the first silver light pool across the windowsill. There were no calls, no emails, just the ticking of the clock and the memory of her reflection, not hers, but something colder, steelier. The woman in the water. She took a breath, deep and slow, and whispered to herself, You asked for this. So don't flinch now. Then she turned on her laptop. Within 48 hours, the shell company, Domino Analytics, was live. Deja handled the surface, a splashy landing page, vague promises of logistics revolution, a fake executive board stacked with fabricated credentials. Naomi worked with Malcolm to write the skeleton code. Nothing functional, just enough logic to look like early-stage magic. Enough to smell like money. They registered an IP in Estonia, another in Austin, and one in Singapore. All smoke. All mirrors. Then Naomi did the most important thing. She leaked it. She sent a confidential memo to her own legal team, knowing at least one pair of eyes was still feeding Boone's network. The memo detailed a strategic pivot under stealth conditions and referenced closed-door conversations with Dubai investors. She didn't wait long. By the next morning, an anonymous inquiry came through Domino's fake Contact Us form. Subject, Exploratory Funding Discussion. From k.juniper@mianco.org. Message, Saw your stealth site. Want to talk? No strings. Naomi forwarded it to Malcolm. His reply came in seconds. Bingo. That's a Boone proxy. Used in 3 other false front acquisitions. Let them bite. She leaned back in her chair, staring at the message. Let them bite. She could feel the hook setting. The next few days were a blur of forward motion. Domino took off faster than expected. Word leaked to the tech gossip blogs. A handful of influencers shared it with the kind of breathless captions that triggered panic among rivals. Wells Tech pivoting into stealth mode ops? Game over. Naomi didn't smile. Not even once. This wasn't success. It was bait. And someone was circling it. By the end of the week, a man named Felix Brewer reached out directly. He claimed to be deep in private equity circles and asked for a coffee meeting in a glassy downtown cafe that screamed soft power. Naomi agreed. She wore black from head to toe, hairpinned, no jewelry. She wanted to be unreadable. Felix arrived 10 minutes early. White guy, late 30s, clean cut, navy suit, pocket square, eyes that darted before they landed. Naomi clocked everything. From the discreet earpiece tucked behind his right ear to the fact that he never touched his coffee once it arrived. I've been following your work, he said, smiling. What you've built, it's remarkable. You want access, she said. He didn't even flinch. I want a partnership. Naomi leaned forward. You work for Boone. It wasn't a question. Felix gave a slow smile. Let's just say I speak for people who appreciate control. There it was. No pitch. No lies. Just the cold blade of intent. You should know, Naomi said quietly. I don't sell what I can't walk away from. Felix's smile faded slightly. Boone doesn't like surprises, Naomi. Then he's going to hate what comes next. She stood and walked out. Didn't wait for him to follow. Didn't look back. That night, Malcolm was already at her apartment when she got home. He held up a flash drive. Confirmed. Boone authorized a $30 million silent acquisition of Domino as of this morning. They're convinced it's your real pivot. Let them close, Naomi said. I want them all the way in. Malcolm raised an eyebrow. You sure? Once they wire funds, they'll think they own you. Naomi stared at the floor, where sunlight used to warm the hardwood. Now it just felt cold. I'm sure. He handed her the drive. This is everything I have on Boone's International Web. The shell firms, offshore accounts, corporate nests. Once you have access to his servers through the Domino pipeline, you'll be able to cross-link and dump the whole thing. Naomi took it, feeling the weight of something irreversible. You're not going to like what's in there, Malcolm warned. She slipped the drive into her pocket. I don't like any of this. Later that night, Naomi sat alone at her kitchen table, the flash drive in front of her. Her laptop open, cursor blinking. One file at the top. Project Driftwood. She clicked. Inside, a PDF of internal emails, board memos, black budget breakdowns, and photos. Photos of her. At conferences. Entering buildings. At her mother's church fundraiser. They'd been tracking her for over a year. Every meeting. Every hire. Every trip. There was one memo that stopped her cold. If Wells refuses integration, initiate public undermining. Utilize social optics and controlled media triggers. Risk escalation acceptable within domestic boundaries. She read it 3 times. Then she closed her laptop and stared into the dark. She wasn't angry anymore. She wasn't afraid. She was something new. Something she didn't have a name for yet. But when the call came, just before midnight, from Felix Brewer, she answered without hesitation. Miss Wells, he said. Congratulations. Boone's board approved the acquisition. The contracts are en route. She could hear it in his voice. Satisfaction. Like he thought it was over. Naomi smiled. Not because she was happy. Because she was ready. Good, she said. Let's close. The contracts arrived the next morning, delivered by a private courier in a dark gray Mercedes with no plates. Deja met him at the front desk. When she brought the envelope up to Naomi's office, her face was pale. They really did it, she said. This is real. Naomi took the envelope, fingers steady. She didn't sit. She didn't read it. Not yet. Tell Malcolm it's time, she said. We move tonight. Deja nodded. You sure you want to go through with this? Naomi looked out the window. The sky over Atlanta was dense with heat, and the skyline shimmered like something unreal. I'm not going to let them build empires on stolen code. Or make me a cautionary tale. Deja didn't speak for a long moment. Then she said quietly, You remember that thing you said? In the elevator, the night you found out Zurich was pulling out. Naomi glanced back. What? You said, let them come for me. Just let them forget who I am first. Naomi's eyes narrowed. Yeah. Deja stepped forward, close. Fierce now. They forgot. Naomi didn't smile. She didn't need to. She cracked the envelope. Signed. Every page. At 2:07 p.m., Domino Analytics was officially acquired by Atria Core Ventures, one of Boone Equity Holdings' front-facing proxies. The press didn't know. The public didn't know. But Naomi knew. And so did Malcolm. He was waiting at a secure node in a data center 2 cities away, where he'd patched into the Domino servers hours earlier. As soon as Boone's acquisition software logged into Domino's system to initiate back-end sync, Malcolm got what they needed, a digital handshake with Boone's private network. They were in. Naomi watched the monitor in her own office as the tunnel blinked open, green light, pulsing. She whispered, Do it. On the other end, Malcolm executed the payload. Not malware. Not destruction. Something far more precise. Every hidden file Naomi had received from Boone's operations, his internal memos, their pipeline strategies, their coordinated political influence operations, was now routed back through the Domino network, quietly tagged with their origin points. Then uploaded to a set of pre-authorized journalist inboxes across 3 continents. One by one. Timed. Coordinated. Irrefutable. By 3:23 p.m., the first journalist, Tay Mensa from The Guardian, sent back a single-line reply. We're verifying. But if this is real, holy hell. It was real. By 4:15 p.m., Naomi's phone started lighting up. Not with calls, but with silence. The kind of silence that follows impact. A vacuum. Boone's people stopped replying. Felix Brewer's number went dark. And the Zurich partner, who had ghosted her 10 days earlier? He sent a short email. We need to speak. Privately. I was unaware of the full extent of Mr. Boone's involvement. She didn't answer. Not yet. She went to her office door and locked it. Paced. Her body was buzzing with adrenaline, but she kept her breathing steady. Just like Malcolm taught her when they were kids, trying to stay calm during summer storms. The news broke at 5:07 p.m. Breaking. Whistleblower leaked ties Boone Equity Holdings to global infrastructure corruption ring. There were names, companies, transaction logs, photos. Naomi's name was not mentioned. Only Domino Analytics, cited as a Trojan horse that Boone attempted to acquire, without knowing it was bait. By 5:14, a second headline landed. Exclusive. Boone partner firm sought to manipulate AI infrastructure in U.S. cities using covert tech integration. The dam was breaking. That night, Naomi stood alone in the center of her apartment. Lights off. Phone face down. TV silent. She didn't need more noise. She closed her eyes, remembering the first time she coded something of her own. A janky little app that helped her mom track bus schedules and grocery deals. She was 16. It ran slow, crashed often, but it worked. Her mom had hugged her so tight that day, laughing like they had just won something. You could build a whole world with this, she said. Naomi had laughed too. But now, years later, she understood what her mother meant. You could build a world. But first, you had to stop the people trying to steal it. At 10:43 p.m., Malcolm texted. We did it. Boone's being subpoenaed. Atria core froze. Domino is clean. Zurich's already reaching out again, cautiously. They're afraid of you now. Naomi typed her response slowly. Good. They should be. She stared at the screen a moment longer. Then added, we're not done. This isn't about getting even anymore. This is about taking the space we earned. Let's finish what we started. Malcolm's reply came in the form of a photo. It was her old patent certificate, the one she had filed solo at 23. He had kept it all this time. Folded, worn, but still intact. Then let's build the world they tried to steal. Naomi looked out the window at the city she'd grown up in. She whispered to the glass. No more ceilings. Naomi showed up to the office the next morning wearing white. Not to be soft. Not to signal peace. To remind them she was still standing. The headlines had already spiraled overnight. Boone's attorneys were scrambling. 3 affiliate firms had gone silent. 1 dissolved before dawn. A federal inquiry was in motion. It wasn't just a scandal anymore. It was a reckoning. But Wells Tech? Still here. Breathing. And now, finally, the one holding the match. Deja was waiting at her desk with 2 coffees and a look Naomi hadn't seen in her before. Something between awe and readiness. You're trending. Naomi took the coffee. I'm not clicking on anything. Don't. It'll mess with your head. What's the mood out there? Deja glanced toward the door. Split. Half the company is riding this high like they just watched you dunk on the whole damn industry. The other half is panicked we're next. Naomi raised an eyebrow. Next for what? Collapse. Lawsuits. Retaliation. There's this quiet sense that you picked a fight too big. Naomi sipped her coffee, then set it down slowly. I didn't pick a fight. I answered one. Deja nodded. That's what I keep telling them. But you should know, legal's nervous. There's talk of a board response. Let them talk. No. You should hear this next part. Naomi froze. Deja looked almost sorry. Last night, while the Boone news was still breaking, we had 2 board members resign. Naomi's fingers flexed against the armrest. Who? Eric Cho and Michelle Langston. Both cited instability in leadership as a reason. They left it clean. But it's what came next. Deja reached into her bag and pulled out a printed email. Naomi read it once. Then again. A request from an anonymous investor block. To assume interim control of Wells Tech if Naomi Wells is deemed compromised by ongoing legal entanglements or conflict of interest activity. Her hands went still. You said the board was talking. They're doing more than that. Deja nodded. They're building a case. Naomi stood, crossed to the window, and stared out at the city that wouldn't stop looking for her cracks. They can't take the company, she said. No, Deja agreed. Not unless they can prove you endangered shareholder equity or lied about Domino's legitimacy. Naomi turned. Domino was legitimate. They saw the code. They saw the board. You also fed them a product designed to trigger an investigation, Deja said carefully. And then leaked that investigation yourself. Naomi exhaled slowly. It wasn't sabotage. It was self-defense. Sure. But you and I don't get the luxury of explaining that when lawyers are in the room. They both stood in silence for a long time. Then Naomi picked up her phone and texted Malcolm. They're coming after the company now. The board. I need leverage. His reply came in under a minute. You already have it. You just haven't used it. Check folder D on the drive. Password. Our father's middle name. Naomi hesitated. She hadn't said her father's name in years. She typed it slowly. Elliot. The folder opened. Inside, a single file, directive_721_urbex.pdf. She clicked. A black and white report. Government seal. Timestamped 2 years prior. She skimmed the opening lines. Her breath caught. Subject: Proposed integration of predictive AI infrastructure tools in federal smart city initiatives. Vendor source: Boone Equity Holdings via proxy. Internal assessment: high risk. Unethical manipulation likely. Potential civil exposure. Then the last page. A redacted note, except for one sentence. Recommend alternative partnership with Wells Tech. Naomi Wells' work shows measurable bias resistance and public accountability features. But Boone insists on full acquisition or suppression. Naomi stood frozen. They hadn't just tried to discredit her. They'd tried to erase her entirely. Because her tech worked too well. Because it couldn't be corrupted. And someone in the federal government had tried to warn them. Deja read over her shoulder. Oh my God. Naomi turned. We're going to release this. To who? Naomi's voice was like steel. To everyone. The next 48 hours moved like fire. Naomi scheduled a press conference. No approval, no filters. She stood on the steps of the Wells Tech campus with her company behind her and said 3 things. Boone Equity Holdings had attempted a hostile acquisition to suppress ethical infrastructure development. Wells Tech would remain independent. The world deserved to know who was building the systems that ran their cities and why. She released the report publicly, not just to journalists, to mayors, to school boards, to transit commissions. She wanted every person who'd ever sat through a city planning meeting to know they were being played. And they didn't have to be. The fallout was immediate. Congressional inquiries. State investigations. Zurich issued a public apology and reoffered their original partnership with better terms. Wells Tech stock, once private and modest, was now the hottest acquisition target in the industry. And Naomi? Naomi was still standing. She stepped into her office the following Monday. Deja greeted her with a smile that didn't hide the exhaustion. There's a camera crew outside. Tell them I'm busy. They'll wait. Naomi closed her door and sat down, alone. She opened her laptop. Typed a line of code. The original one. The first block she'd ever written. The one that powered the bus schedule app. That powered everything since. And she hit enter. It ran clean. She smiled. For the first time in weeks. Then her phone buzzed. A message from Malcolm. You burned it all down. Now what do you build in the ash? She stared at his words. Then looked out the window, past the skyline, to something bigger. I guess, she whispered. We find out. Naomi didn't sleep much anymore. Not because of fear. Those nights were behind her. But because her mind wouldn't stop building. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw new frameworks. Cleaner lines. Smarter systems. A company reborn from the wreckage of other people's intentions. But the fire that had kept her alive through betrayal and sabotage? That didn't fade. It evolved. Now it was hunger. And it was about more than Wells Tech. She wanted the whole damn table. 3 weeks after the Boone exposure, Naomi stood before the City Infrastructure Commission in Washington, D.C. The chamber was packed. Reporters, urban planners, tech execs pretending not to squirm. Naomi wore no logo. No pin. Just a tailored black suit and a nameplate that read Naomi Wells, founder and CEO, Wells Tech. A senator cleared his throat. Ms. Wells, can you confirm the document you released, Directive 721, was authentic and obtained legally? Naomi's voice didn't waver. I can confirm that its contents were verified by multiple government sources. As for its legality, I'll refer you to the Whistleblower Protection Act. There was a ripple of laughter. Tense, unsure. Let me be clear, she said. My company develops AI systems to make cities safer, smarter, and more accountable. That only works if the people running the systems aren't corrupt. I didn't leak that report to get attention. I leaked it because no one else had the spine to say out loud what we all know. Tech without ethics is just controlled demolition. The room quieted. One commissioner leaned forward. And if we offered you the federal infrastructure contract today, would you take it? Naomi paused. No, she said. Gasps. Audible ones. She let the silence breathe before she continued. Not until you commit to transparency standards. Not until there's a civilian oversight board. And not until you prove this isn't another political press cycle. I didn't fight Boone just to replace him. The senator raised an eyebrow. Then what are you doing here? Naomi looked him dead in the eye. I'm not here to be chosen. I'm here to change the terms. That night, Malcolm called her from a burner. You know you just turned down the biggest federal tech contract since DefenseNet. Not turned down. Postponed. He whistled. You're playing a longer game than I thought. I'm not playing, Naomi said. I'm building something they can't co-opt. There was a pause on the line. You scared them today. Good. But you scared some allies too. She leaned back on her couch, staring at the ceiling. If they're scared of transparency, they're not allies. You think you can win this clean? I think I can win it right. Another pause. Then Malcolm said something he hadn't said in years. You remind me of Dad when you talk like that. Naomi didn't reply for a long time. The ache in her chest was sharp and sudden. You think he'd be proud of us? Malcolm's voice softened. He'd be terrified. But yeah, he'd be proud. They stayed on the line for a while longer, not talking, just breathing. The next day, Naomi stepped into her office to find Deja waiting with a thick, white envelope. Anonymous drop. No return address. Naomi opened it. Inside, a photo. The same teller who threw her cash on the floor. But now she was in a different uniform. A badge clipped to her collar. Private security. Next to her, Boone. Smiling. Naomi stared at it. There's a reason that teller felt confident enough to do what she did, Deja said. She wasn't alone. She wasn't random. No, Naomi said. She was a tool. Part of a plan. There's more. Deja slid another photo across the table. This time, Naomi was in it. Taken from above. Blurry. Her standing outside the Zurich Pitch building. The angle looked familiar. It was a drone shot. You think Boone was the only one watching? Deja asked. He had enemies. Competitors. One of them sent this. Naomi narrowed her eyes. Someone's opening another door. Deja didn't say what they were both thinking. Another game. Another trap. Instead, she asked, you want to walk through it? Naomi stared at the photos again. Then said, no. Deja blinked. No. We don't walk through someone else's door. Naomi stood, eyes locked on the skyline. We build our own. She turned to Deja. Put together a private summit. 10 companies. Only founders. No investors. No boards. No PR. Just people who've bled to build something real. What's the pitch? Naomi's mouth curved, just slightly. There's no pitch. There's a plan. We create a new standard. A real one. Data ethics. Civil tech. Shared code access across cities. Deja shook her head, half laughing. You're trying to start a movement. Naomi looked at her. No, I'm starting a foundation. That night, Naomi wrote the mission statement herself. On paper, not in an email, not on a whiteboard. She wanted to feel it. The Wells Foundation will exist to protect, elevate, and empower the builders who fight for a better future. Not just the loudest ones, the right ones. We are not neutral. We are principled. We do not wait for permission. We create the next rules. She read it once, then again, and signed her name at the bottom. Naomi Wells. Founder. Survivor. Threat. Answer. Naomi stood alone in the center of the room that used to be her company's R&D lab. The walls were bare now, stripped of whiteboards and renderings. The hum of servers had been replaced by quiet, expectant, unfinished. In a week, it would be the new headquarters of the Wells Foundation. She didn't need the old noise anymore. She needed clarity. A movement needed walls. Space. A heartbeat. This would be it. The conference table was custom-built, long, wide, and unfinished maple. No gloss. No shine. Just solid wood that invited people to roll up their sleeves. Naomi touched it with her fingers. The grain was rough, real. Just like everything she had survived. Deja stepped in quietly, a tablet tucked under one arm. You ready? She asked. No, Naomi said. But let's do it anyway. They called it the Quiet Summit. No press. No live stream. No hashtags. 10 founders from across the country. Black, brown, women, queer, underfunded, overachieving, and almost erased, invited by Naomi personally. Every one of them had turned down VC money at some point. Every one of them had nearly shut down after a boardroom turned cold. And every one of them came. They flew in on red ice, drove through thunderstorms, canceled client meetings. They didn't come for opportunity. They came for something that didn't exist yet. The first to arrive was Kiera Holmes, founder of a modular housing startup in Detroit. Then came Alejandro from a public safety data collective in Houston. Maya, who coded water flow optimization for rural towns in Mississippi. Even Miles, the crypto-turned-agriculture convert from Oakland. They shook hands without business cards. They looked each other in the eye. No one smiled too big. They didn't need to. When Naomi stood in front of them, she didn't start with a pitch. She started with a story. I built something that was almost taken from me, she said. Not because it was weak, but because it worked. A pause. They didn't want the system. They wanted the control. And when I wouldn't hand it over, they made sure the world saw me as angry, difficult, risky. The moment I stopped making them comfortable, I became a threat. A few heads nodded. Someone exhaled too hard. I fought back, she said. And I won. But I didn't come here today to talk about victory. I came here because I don't want to win alone. She looked around the table, eyes locking with each of them. I'm not offering funding. I'm offering structure. A shared firewall. A collective that protects our code, our data, and our dignity. No ownership. No exit strategy. Just a spine. She let that word hang in the air. Spine. Then she placed a single sheet of paper on the table. One line at the top. Wells Foundation Shared Tech Charter, Draft 1. Underneath it, 7 clauses. Simple. Sharp. Each one written in language clear enough to frame on a wall. We protect intellectual property without hoarding innovation. We publish public-facing algorithms. No black boxes. We refuse funding that demands silence. We build ethical integrations first, then scale. We name exploitation when we see it, even in our own systems. We don't platform billionaires who think they invented empathy. We don't beg. We build. Naomi didn't say anything else. She let them read. Then she stepped back. Let them decide. It took 10 minutes. No one spoke. No one moved to water down the language. Then Kiera slid the paper back to the center of the table and said, "Where do we sign?" The Wells Foundation launched quietly, like its summit. No splashy site. No media rollout. Just a joint letter posted online with 10 names at the bottom and a promise. We are not looking for seats at your table. We are building our own. Within 48 hours, they had 12,000 applications from other founders. Not for funding. For membership. For protection. For partnership. Naomi turned off her phone that night and sat on her apartment floor with a cup of tea, the quiet around her louder than she expected. She didn't feel triumphant. She felt tired. Like her body finally believed she could rest. She hadn't been this tired since the day after her father left. The next morning, her inbox was full again. One email stood out. Subject, Zurich Board Response. Your terms. Naomi opened it. It was short. Ms. Wells, your position has been reviewed. We agree to your conditions, full equity control, tech non-interference clause, and public transparency window. We look forward to the future. Sincerely, K. Brunner, Zurich Infrastructure Division. Naomi blinked once. Then she closed the laptop. She didn't cheer, didn't cry, didn't even smile. She just whispered. They came back. And this time, it would be her terms. Later that day, she walked into the Wells Tech building and passed the old teller photo framed on her office wall. It hung there on purpose, not as a warning, as a memory. The moment everything changed. The moment someone thought they could throw her money and her worth on the ground. And the moment they forgot who she really was. That photo would never come down, because she needed to remember the exact second they lost. The building was quiet when Naomi arrived. Not silent. There was always a hum now, a rhythm to the Wells Foundation's heartbeat. But the early hour meant empty halls, low light, and time to think. She stood at the entrance to the new strategy room, fingers tracing the edge of the doorframe. The wood was smooth, dark oak. Not sleek, not polished, just solid. Behind her, the sun was rising over Atlanta, golden light crawling over the windows like it had nowhere else to be. She stepped inside. The table was already set. Not with papers, not with laptops. With people. Kiera, Alejandro, Maya, Miles, the others. Founders who weren't waiting for anyone to see them anymore. They were shaping the view. Naomi took her seat at the head of the table. Not because she demanded it, but because the others had left it open. Not out of deference. Out of alignment. She opened the meeting with a question. What happens next? They all looked at her. Naomi continued. We've built the shield. We've built the wall. The fire's behind us now. So what do we build? With no one telling us what we're not allowed to do. There was a beat of silence. Then Maya spoke, her voice steady. We start with truth. Alejandro nodded. Then we had access. Miles leaned forward. Then we get loud. Naomi smiled, just a little. Not because it was over, but because it was finally beginning. By the end of that week, Wells Tech had inked a new deal, not just with Zurich, but with 4 major U.S. cities. The contracts were different this time. No silence clauses. No buried equity trades. Every agreement included language from the Wells Charter. Transparency. Oversight. Recourse. She didn't just win the deal. She changed the rules. The new version of her code base, Wells Core, was public, open source, and fully audit traceable. And people didn't flinch. They leaned in. Colleges started teaching it. City officials started studying it. The headlines shifted. They stopped calling her the controversial black CEO. They started calling her the one who wouldn't bend. She still didn't read the articles. But Deja printed one anyway, just once, and taped it to her door. Wells rewrites the playbook, from target to architect. Underneath, in Naomi's handwriting, still not done. But there was one last thing. A loose thread. She met Malcolm in the corner of a quiet diner 2 hours outside the city, where no one looked up from their food and the waitress didn't care about last names. He slid a folder across the table. No label. She opened it. Inside, a report on Boone. His holdings. What remained? Very little. He's done, Malcolm said. Stripped. No more proxies. He's selling off properties. Europe's freezing his accounts. Naomi didn't look satisfied. She looked thoughtful. He ever reach out? She asked. Malcolm shook his head. He won't. That's not his move. And if he does? Malcolm smirked. I'll answer. Naomi nodded once, closed the folder, and slid it back. I don't need to keep it, she said. I already know how it ends. Malcolm raised an eyebrow. How? She sipped her coffee. We forget him. That night, Naomi returned to her apartment for the first time in days. The space was quiet, but this time not heavy. She poured herself a glass of water, sat on the couch, and opened a notebook. No screens, no networks, just a pen. She wrote a single sentence. They tried to build something on my back. Now I build something they can't touch. She paused, then turned the page, and wrote the first line of her next chapter. Not the company's. Hers. In the years to come, Wells Tech would outlive its rivals. The Wells Foundation would reshape how cities thought about data, equity, and code. The founders she brought together would become institutions. But Naomi? She would never again wait for anyone to recognize her value. Because the day that teller threw her money on the floor was the day Naomi Wells stopped trying to be accepted and started becoming unforgettable.